Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas, everybody! I am Mac, back with another video. These are my Week 16 picks of the 2023 NFL season, as we are just a couple of days away from Christmas. Myself personally, I'm Italian on my mom's side, so I actually celebrate Christmas Eve more than I do Christmas Day. But hope yous all have a great holiday. Hope yous celebrate it more. And hope you have just a safe and happy holiday with your friends, your family, your significant other, whoever it is that you celebrate it with. But let's get on to it. Week 15, a pretty solid week for me as I went 11-5 in Week 15, switching from Philly to Seattle really helped out my Week 15, as that prevented 3 straight L's to close out the week. It was a big gamble that I took. As Week 16, we got a big Santa sack of games that are going to be good, and then there's ones that are, well, not so good. But let's not waste any time. These are my Week 16 picks, 2023 NFL season. Let's see what Santa brought us for this week, as we start things off, as always, Thursday night football between the New Orleans Saints and the Los Angeles Rams in LA, as I actually think this can be a really good game. Both teams are coming in at 7-7, I believe, and there's playoff implications on the line. If the Saints win, I believe they would be momentarily in first place in the NFC South. And if the Rams win, they would actually move up to the second wildcard spot in the NFC. So obviously, there's some playoff implications with this matchup right here. The Saints, they are coming off, I believe the Saints are coming off a win, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that's right. They beat the New York Giants, as they're coming off a win. As the Rams, they're also coming off a win over Washington. So to me, it's going to come down to a couple of things. It is a matchup essentially of two QBs who never really do well in prime time, as it's Derek Carr against Matthew Stafford. So I think right there, that's a headline to look out for right there. But at the end of the night, to me, it comes down to who I think has the more reliable offense. And while the Saints offense has really been productive at times this season, it just seems to be a little unreliable in moments. And plus, I really do think the Rams have a big advantage in this game, despite it being a short week. They do not have to leave Los Angeles, as they stay at home for a short week. So at least they got that going for them in this game. The Saints, I do think that they have a strong defense coming to this one, and we know that Matthew Stafford in the past has struggled against strong defenses, but lately Matthew Stafford has been playing with a lot more confidence, and when he gets on with Cooper Kupp, that's when the Rams are most deadly. So I'm going to actually go with the Rams to get the job done here, simply because I just really can't trust anyone in the NFC South. I mean, the NFC South is just a putrid division. So I'm going to go with the Rams to take this one over the Saints. Pretty good game, I must say, though. Now we got my matchup. Saturday games, we got two of them. First at bat, it is the Cincinnati Bengals and the Pittsburgh Steelers going at it at Heinz Field. Last home game of the season for the Steelers. So the Bengals coming in 8-6. I'm going to get more of this in my preview, if you want to call it that. So we know the Bengals, under their offense, they run a West Coast. And Zach Taylor has done a really good job with working with Jake Browning ever since he came in. And since then, he has a 73.6 completion percentage, 7 touchdown passes, 3 picks. Jamar Chase is unlikely to play for this game for the Bengals, as he is day-to-day. So I think that's going to especially open up the door for T. Higgins in this game, and you got to put a guy like JPJ on him right here. As for the Steelers, Mason Rudolph is getting the start, but that's right, there is a but. because that's the type of head coach that we have with Mike Tomlin. He's only getting the start if Kenny Pickett can't play this game. So, to me, that basically just says Mike Tomlin has no real he has no real intention of starting Mason Rudolph in this game. So, pretty much Mike Tomlin's living in his fears. He's just going with the old buddy system that he has, and it's going to cost us a game. I told you guys that if we drop that game to New England, I would not pick us for the rest of the season, and that's what I'm going to do right here. I refuse to take the Steelers seriously. I really do. You're up 13-0 on the Indianapolis Colts. Granted, they're a good team. But yet again, it's another first-year head coach. It's another team that's full of depth players because a lot of them got injured during the game or they were out of the game prior. And it's unknown that even going into this game, how Mason Rudolph is going to fare in the limelight, because this is essentially a primetime game right here. I will say Mason Rudolph is 2-0 in his career against the Bengals, but the Bengals back then were one of the worst teams in the league, if not the worst team in the league. And they've obviously made some significant strides since then. And just the way our defense is, now having to go up against Jake Browning for the second time. I mean, all Jake Browning really has to do is just look at the tape from the first matchup, because the defense did take care of him in the first game. I will say that. We sacked Browning 4 times in the first game, and we intercepted him as well. But when Minkah Fitzpatrick and Cam Hayward are probably not going to play in this game, so if Thompson can't go either, it opens the door for our terrible safety depth, which I'm going to get more into later on. But yeah, man, we've lost 3 straight. The Bengals have won 3 straight. These are 2 teams that are just headed in completely different directions. And you know what? The Steelers, everyone says, well, Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season. Guess what, guys? This is going to be his first losing season. It is. It really is. It's inexcusable to go all in the offseason like that, fix up pretty much every major hole that you had going into this season, and you're going to finish under 500 for the first time in 20 years. This is not a good team. This is not a playoff team. I don't know how anyone can sit back and say that they're afraid of playing the Steelers just because of a narrative that they have. This is not a playoff team, plain and simple. And when the Cincinnati Bengals come into our house Saturday night and beat us and pretty much eliminate us from playoff contention and pretty much clinch us a last place finish in this division, guess what? All the narratives are going to go away. And then no one will have anything to say anymore about this franchise, because that's what it's built off of right now. Narratives and past glories. Cincinnati wins this one. More in my preview. Saturday night, we got the Buffalo Bills and the Los Angeles Chargers going at it at SoFi. Short, sweet, to the point, the Buffalo Bills are my lock of the week. The Bills, they had a big hiccup middle of the season, and ever since firing their offensive coordinator and getting a new one, the Bills look like the team that I expected them to be before the season began, and what a lot of other people expected them to be. Buffalo is still very much alive in the AFC, and I really do think that they are going to make things a lot more interesting down the final phases of the season. Whereas the Chargers, 63-21. I mean, they were down 42-0 at halftime, and they were down 63-7 late in the fourth quarter. Now, granted, Brandon Staley did get fired, so props to the Chargers for that, and they also fired their GM. But let's be honest with ourselves. Those 2 things should have happened after their implosion against Jacksonville in the playoffs last January. But at least they did the right thing in the end. Buffalo wins this one convincingly. They are my lock of the week. They are going to do everything they can to stay alive in the AFC. Buffalo easily. Alrighty, now we got the fun part. These are the Christmas Eve games, man, and as you can tell, I'm being all festive for it because Christmas Eve is my holiday, baby. So, first at bat, we got the Indianapolis Colts and the Atlanta Falcons in Atlanta. As the Colts, they are coming off steamrolling us 30-13. And they found themselves in an early 13-0 deficit. They came back and outscored us 30-0. Gardner Minshew turned in a solid game. The run game ran all over us. Indy had a good game through the air. Just overall, really solid performance by the Colts, and they are 8-6, still very much in it in the AFC playoff hunt. Atlanta, they lost to the 1-12, now 2-12 Carolina Panthers by way of a last-second field goal. They dropped it 9-7. Speaking of teams who should make a coaching change, it's Atlanta. That game should have gotten Arthur Smith fired on the spot. And Atlanta, in my opinion, they just have nothing to play for anymore at this point. I mean, sure, can Bijan Robinson make a bounce-back, performance in this game against Indy's rush defense? I suppose he can, but knowing Arthur Smith, he's just going to horribly misuse him like how he has with Atlanta for the entire season. I'm going with the Indianapolis Colts to keep things rolling, keep their hopes alive, and they're going to keep up the pressure in the AFC playoff picture. Give me the Colts to take this one over Atlanta. Then we got the Seattle Seahawks and the Tennessee Titans. This one is down in Nashville. The Seahawks, a surprising Monday night win over the Philadelphia Eagles. As I said at the beginning, I made the switch from Philly to Seattle, and that saved my week, and it put me in first place in my division in Pick'em. As the Seahawks, they are 7-7, snapping that losing streak, and they kept their season alive with that comeback win led by Drew Lock. And, that kind of begs the question this week for Seattle. Who do they start at QB? Do they roll with Drew Lock again, or is Geno Smith going to be good to go? But regardless, I mean, the Tennessee Titans, they drop one at home to the Houston Texans. I don't think C.J. Stroud played in that game for Houston, but Tennessee, they just do what they do best, which is drop games, in just inexcusable ways. And Tennessee, they're eliminated from playoff contention. I really don't know. They really got nothing else to play for at this point, so I think that they should really just tank the season or maybe even play spoiler in some cases, but I don't think they're going to want to. I don't think that's going to be the case against Seattle right here. The Seahawks, they have newfound life in them. Like I said, a win like that against Philly is a season saver, and I think that's going to be the case here. So I'm going to go with the Seattle Seahawks to get the job done over Tennessee on Christmas Eve. Well, Santa must have thought that we were some pretty good football fans this year, as we got my rivalry of the week right here. The Detroit Lions at the Minnesota Vikings. This one is in US Bank Stadium in Minnesota. The Lions coming off whacking the Denver Broncos last Saturday, 42-17. And just overall dominant performance by the Lions, and Dan Campbell continues his pace for Coach of the Year. The Lions, they are hungry for a division title, and they can clinch it this week. All they got to do is win, I believe. As for the Minnesota Vikings, I don't remember really. They may have lost. They did. They actually did lose. They dropped it to the Cincinnati Bengals after blowing a 14-point lead against them last Saturday. So these are two teams that are coming off playing on Saturday. So I guess neither team really has an advantage going into this one. So the question for Minnesota for me is Nick Mullins going to start in this game again for them? Nick Mullins did respectable against the Bengals, but just not really good enough for them to come away with the win. And Minnesota's defense, I mean, just imploded in the final moments of that game against the Bengals. And now they got to go up against the Lions, who are just an offensive fireworks show all season long. I think if the Lions just run it on the ground against Minnesota and they let Jared Goff just do his thing, I think Detroit has a really good chance at winning. The Lions' defense is a little suspect in my opinion, but I really don't think with a backup quarterback starting this game for the Vikings that it's really going to matter. The Vikings, I mean, they are still alive in the NFC playoff picture, and they're going to really test Detroit here. I mean, after all, it is a divisional game, and that's why it's my rivalry of the week. But let's be honest, man. The Lions, they just seem like the more hungry team coming in this one, and they want their first division title in 30 years. I'm going with the Lions to get the job done over the Minnesota Vikings on Christmas Eve. At the end of the day, I just do not trust the Vikings. You know, they had their resilience that they've had all season, but I think they just lost too many games to start off the year, and now their margin of error is pretty much gone. Whereas the Lions, they can maybe afford to drop another game, but the Lions are definitely going to keep things interesting in the NFC playoff picture, and they are definitely not dead when it comes to clinching the number one seed. They still have a chance to do that. I don't think they will, but it's not impossible for them to do it. But I'm going to go Detroit to get the job done over Minnesota here. Now we got the Washington Redskins and the New York Jets. This one is at MetLife. A pretty insignificant matchup here. Washington's coming off losing to the Rams. They got the worst statistical defense in the league after the fire sale they had. And the Jets, they are coming off getting shellacked by the Dolphins 30-0. Holy crap. So, I mean, this is pretty insignificant right here. It's a matchup of I got to pick someone to win. So, really, when in doubt, I'm just going to go with the home team here. I got the Jets taking this one. Simply because, not because I like the Jets offensively. I don't even know who they're going to start at QB in this game. And Washington, Jacoby Brissett came in for a little bit after they benched Sam Howell. But the way the Jets defense plays, I really think that it's going to be a non-factor for Washington here. I just don't think the Jets are going to get it done offensively. But then again, they whacked Houston a couple weeks ago with C.J. Stroud in that game. So for that simple fact, I'm going to go with the Jets to get the job done over Washington because I like the Jets defensively more. Then we got the Green Bay Packers at the Carolina Panthers. This one is in Charlotte as the Packers blew it at home to Tampa Bay 34-20. And now Green Bay, after a surge that they had, they are on the outside looking in, and their margin of error has now rapidly diminished as they take on the 2-12 Carolina Panthers coming off an emotional win against the Atlanta Falcons. One thing I will say about Carolina is that they are competitive this year, but they just got to learn how to finish off games. And like I keep stressing, I really don't know if Bryce Young should be starting the rest of the way for Carolina because it's not really a wise move to risk everything that you traded for because Carolina won't even have the number one pick in next spring's draft. So, Green Bay, Jordan Love, he continues to play well, but my main concern with the Packers is on defense. And that, ironically, was the biggest asset that they had going into the season, and Green Bay's defense has looked really off lately. But I really don't know if that's going to matter for this one, as I'm going to go with the Packers to get off the schneid here, get the job done over the Carolina Panthers. I got the defense stepping up. I got them roughing up Bryce Young here if he does start. And I got Jordan Love continuing to go on a tear against that Carolina defense. So I'm going to go with the Packers to get the job done over the Panthers. Next up, we got the Cleveland Browns and the Houston Texans. This one is down in Houston, as this matchup here actually has some pretty good playoff implications for both teams. The Browns are 9-5, coming off of a win in overtime against the Chicago Bears, where Joe Flacco didn't play his best football, but the Browns defense won it for them again. and they are sitting pretty good right now in the AFC playoff picture as they are currently the number one wild card, I believe, in the AFC. While Houston is 8-6, they're coming off a win over the Titans down in Nashville, where they got it done, I think, in overtime, if I'm not mistaken. I know it was a close game, though. But regardless, the Texans won, even without C.J. Stroud. And that's going to be the big question for this one. Does C.J. Stroud play in this game for Houston? Did he clear concussion protocol? Is he healthy enough to play? But I got to be honest with you guys here. Houston is favored in this game. And while I do think they have they do have, a lot of momentum in them to go ahead and beat the Browns, the biggest strike that I have against the Texans this season is that they have not beaten a team that has a top 10 defense this year. And guess what? The Cleveland Browns are the number one defense in the NFL. They've pretty much been the number one defense all season long. The Browns have, they've done a good job with not allowing a lot of points, but over the past couple weeks, that's been a problem with them. They kept the Bears off the board for as much as they could, but, I don't know if C.J. Stroud being 100% good to go in this game is really going to benefit Houston for this one, because we've seen the Texans struggle against these physical types of defense that they've gone up against. I mean, look at what happened against the Jets. They got destroyed 30-6. And the Jets have that kind of defense, and so does Cleveland. So as much as I hate to say it, regardless if C.J. Stroud plays in this game or not, I think I'm going to lean more towards Cleveland for this one. This was close to being my upset of the week, but I got another one in mind for that. As I'm going to lean towards Cleveland because I like them defensively, and I don't really know if Joe Flacco is going to be a huge factor in this game for Cleveland. But I think in the end, he's going to do enough to make sure the Browns have some good offense and they have a respectable game. So I'm going to go with the Browns to, I think, win their third in a row, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm going to go Cleveland here to get the job done. Then for the later slate of games on Christmas Eve, we got the Battle of Florida between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This one is in Tampa, as the Jags have all of a sudden dropped 3 straight games. They were sitting real good at 8-3 3 weeks ago, and now they have dropped 3 consecutive games, and it's not a lock for them to win the AFC South anymore, as Houston and Indy both have the same record as them. Jacksonville does have the tiebreaker over the Colts as they swept the season series with them, but Houston is now nibbling at their ankles. So Jacksonville, it's going to be interesting to see where they're at when it comes to Week 18. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're 7-7, coming off a win over the Packers in Lambeau. Tampa Bay, they better become big Rams fans on Thursday night, because if LA wins and Tampa wins, I believe they have sole possession for first in the NFC South. Maybe this time it'll actually have been earned by them. They have not won 3 straight division titles in their entire franchise's history. But Baker Mayfield putting up a perfect passer rating performance at Lambeau Field. That's something that's pretty much unheard of these days when quarterbacks have to go to Lambeau Field. And I would normally say the Jags can match up to them really well when it comes to that quarterback department. But get a load of this. Trevor Lawrence is in concussion protocol. Now, Trevor Lawrence is built differently. We've seen that he can play through injuries. But with how strict the NFL is when it comes to concussions, and especially concussion protocol, I'm making this my upset of the week. I'm going with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to hand the Jags their 4th loss in a row. And that could honestly catapult the Colts into first place if my picks hold up to be true. How do you like that? The Colts being in first in the AFC South. That would still mean Jacksonville's a wild card for the moment. But wow, 4 straight L's for Jacksonville. down the final phases does not look good, as I got Tampa Bay pulling off the upset over the Jags regardless if Trevor Lawrence plays. Well, Santa sure did leave us a big old lump of coal, as this is my lump of coal week, a game of the week. Arizona Cardinals and the Chicago Bears at Soldier Field in Chicago. Why this is a later game, I have no idea. So yeah, this is my worst matchup of the week right here. Washington, the Jets was a close second, but at least the Jets have a good defense. But this one takes the cake right here. Arizona is 3-11. They only have one road win on the season, which came against us. So there you go with that. But the Cardinals, they got beat up at home by the 49ers after they gave San Francisco a little bit of a scare. But then the 49ers just proved to be way too much for them. So Arizona is 3-11. I don't know if they can win another game for the season. But then you got to look at the Chicago Bears. Now, to be fair with the Bears, they have been doing better defensively. And it's going to be a very interesting ride for the rest of the season with Justin Fields. He has to show that he is indeed the franchise quarterback for the Bears going forward, because if he flunks these final 3 games, I think the Bears got to go quarterback with their first overall pick in 2024. The Bears, they lost it to the Browns in Cleveland, where they had several chances to beat the Browns, but, you know, the Browns defense just proves to be way too much for them. But I don't think they got to worry about that with Arizona. I'm going to go with the Bears to get the job done here, because they can put up some points on the board here, as the Bears' offense at times do click on offense, while Arizona's pass defense is still like the worst in the league. So I'm going to go Chicago to win this one, and they can share their coal with Arizona. So I'm going to go with the Bears to get the job done here. Well, going from the lump of coal game of the week to a strong candidate to the game of the week. How about that for a transition, as Santa does care about us a little bit, as you can say, you could say, as we got a dandy right here, the Dallas Cowboys and the Miami Dolphins going at it in Miami. Very tough game to pick for me right here personally. You got the Miami Dolphins, who got Tua Tagovailoa, who leads the league in passing yards, and Dak Prescott for the Cowboys is actually 5th. Dak continues to put up MVP-type numbers this season, and the Cowboys, defensively, they have been a scrappy bunch. I mean, the Cowboys are 6th in defense this year, but you can't ignore Miami's defense. They're 5th in defense. Tyreek Hill, he leads the league in receiving yards, and CeeDee Lamb is right there at 3rd. But the question is, does Tyreek Hill play in this game? The Dolphins are optimistic that he will play in this game. So, I mean, there's a lot of big headlines going into this one. Now, for pretty much the past couple weeks, everybody's been saying this about these two teams. This is the fraud bowl. These two teams are, smoke and mirrors. They're not going to make noise in the playoffs because they only beat up on bad teams. While that is true for some of it, here's the difference right here. Even though the Cowboys got beat up real bad by the Buffalo Bills last Sunday, 31-10, that doesn't take away the fact that the Cowboys have actually been beating the teams that they need to beat lately. They beat the Seahawks a couple weeks ago in a thrilling Thursday nighter, and then they went back home, or they stayed at home rather, and destroyed the Philadelphia Eagles at home. So those are 2 quality wins by the Cowboys right there. The Dolphins, they have yet to beat a strong opponent this season. I can't remember a team that the Dolphins beat this year that was good. I mean, you might say the Denver Broncos, but Denver was really bad at that time, and no one could predict the Broncos would make the turnaround that they did. So it's hard to pick out a strong contender that the Dolphins have beaten this year. Dallas's defense, I think, is going to be the biggest X factor in this one, as I do think they have the defense that can maintain Miami offensively, but as we know, that's not going to be an easy task. The Dolphins, I do trust them defensively, but like I keep saying, the Cowboys offensively could be too much for them and vice versa. Normally in a situation like this, I would go with the home team, but I'm actually going to go more towards the Dallas Cowboys on this one, simply because I favor them slightly more defensively than Miami. At the end of the day, it's going to come down to who can make that big play on defense, and with me, that is the Dallas Cowboys. So I'm going to go Dallas in a really good, hard-fought game here. Sunday Night Football. I have no clue why this is a Sunday night game, but whatever. Let's just go with it. We got the Patriots and the Broncos in Denver, as the Pats are coming off yet another loss. They dropped it at home to Kansas City 27-17. The Patriots are 3-11. They continue to be a really bad team, except when they play the Steelers, as always. And the Denver Broncos, they got destroyed by the Detroit Lions last Saturday night, 42-17. But as we've seen with the Broncos, I mean, that's nothing compared to them giving up 70 points to Miami back in Week 3, I believe it was. The Broncos have shown resilience all season. Sean Payton, if he can take this Bronco team to the playoffs, I definitely think he has to be a candidate for Coach of the Year. Russell Wilson, he has my vote, honestly, for Comeback Player of the Year, as he continues to turn in a really quietly underrated season. And the Broncos defense continues to play tough on all cylinders. And them going up against New England's offense that's just really stagnant and stale this year, I don't see the Broncos really having any sort of trouble against that Patriot offense going into this game. So I'm going to go with the Denver Broncos to rebound after that terrible loss they had to the Lions and really keep up the pace in the AFC playoffs. I'm going to go with the Broncos to get the job done over the Patriots. Now we got Christmas Day. 3 games on Christmas Day. As, like I said, it's not that I don't celebrate Christmas Day. I do. It's just that it kind of ends for me after I open up my gifts. And then I just, kind of just do whatever for the rest of the day. That's why I celebrate Christmas Eve more. But anyway, first at bat, we got the Las Vegas Raiders and the Kansas City Chiefs. So maybe around this time, maybe you're just finishing opening up your gifts. Maybe you got some family coming over at this point. It's early in the afternoon. Who knows what people are doing. But the Raiders and the Chiefs, I mean, this is a good matchup here to just kind of zone out and to just, test out some of the new gifts that you got. Maybe you got some new clothes. Maybe you got a new iPhone, whatever you got. Test some of that out here because this is going to be a laugher. I got Kansas City winning this one easily. Josh Jacobs is questionable for this game, and even though he does have a good history of going up against Kansas City, and the Raiders are coming off that 63-point drubbing of the Chargers last Thursday night. And the Raiders are on a rest. I will give them that. They have 4 extra days of rest for this game. So I will give Vegas a little bit of credit for this. But let's be honest. The Chiefs, they're coming in this game wanting to catch up for that number 1 seed. Wanting to wrap up the AFC West. They know they got Denver on their heels now. I got the Kansas City Chiefs getting the job done over Vegas here in a pretty convincing game. Then later on, you're probably having your Christmas ham or your Christmas turkey or whatever it is that you eat on Christmas, as we got the New York Football Giants heading on over to the Link to play the Eagles. In my opinion, the best rivalry in NFL history is between these two, the Giants and the Eagles. But lately, it has been completely one-sided. The Giants are coming off a loss to the Saints where Tommy DeVito was tested for a concussion. He did come back, but that's pretty concerning right there for the Giants, as they just couldn't get anything going offensively. And then you got the Philadelphia Eagles. 3 straight losses for the Eagles. They're sitting at 10-4. They're still the number 1 wild card in the NFC right now. But if I'm an Eagles fan, I would be very concerned about where this team is headed right now, as they've dropped 3 straight games. But you can give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt by saying that they lost to 3 really good teams that are in the playoff picture. They lost to San Francisco, Dallas, and Seattle. Those are 3 good teams. But they're going up against the Giants, who they have owned over the better part of the last 15 years or so. I can't even remember the last time when the Giants swept the Eagles. This is a very angry Eagles team that's coming in this one. And I just think Philly is just way too good to drop 4 in a row. They're back at home. They're playing in front of the crowd. And they know with Dallas, with Dallas leading them in the division right now, and now with San Francisco, holding that number 1 seed in the NFC, and with the Eagles' inconsistencies with defense, and with the Giants coming in with an uncertain QB answer, I think Philly unleashes all their anger here out on the Giants. I'm going to go with the Eagles to get the job done over the Giants here. Well, Santa sure saved us the best for last on Christmas night, as this is my game of the week and what honestly could be a preview of Super Bowl 58 in Vegas. I hope to God it's not. I hope one of these teams makes the Super Bowl, and that's the 49ers. But we got the Baltimore Ravens and the San Francisco 49ers. What a way to wrap up Week 16 with a clash of the Titans right here with this game here. Ravens and the 49ers. Let's go over some stats right here. The 49ers coming into this game, 2nd in total offense. The Ravens are 5th in total offense. 49ers have the 9th ranked defense. Baltimore has the 2nd ranked defense. Ravens with the best rush offense, and San Francisco has the 3rd best rush offense. 49ers lead the league in turnover margin, while the Ravens lead it in sacks. So, any way you look at it, this is game of the week right here, and it's very easy to see why. Now, couple of notes that I want to go over. Even though that both these teams come in 11-3, both have clinched playoff spots. Well, the 49ers have already clinched the NFC West. They are definitely going to want to keep up that pace with clinching the number 1 seed in the NFC. They're going to have to wait a couple weeks to do that. But with the 49ers, or first let's start off with the Ravens, okay? These two teams are both 11-3, but in my opinion, Baltimore's been the more consistent team this year. Their 3 losses have been spread out, and they've lost by 1 possession in all 3 of them. And if it wasn't for John Harbaugh making some questionable decisions, the Ravens honestly could be undefeated. I hate to say that, but it's true. They honestly could be undefeated. They blew it against us because they had several opportunities. Defense let up big time against the Colts, and then they choked away a game against the Cleveland Browns pretty uncharacteristically. But overall, the Ravens have been the more consistent team. San Francisco's been a juggernaut this year for the most part, as they got off to that blazing hot 5-0 start. But then they had a minor setback where they dropped 3 straight. Then they had their bye week, which came at the perfect time, in my opinion. And then ever since then, the 49ers have won all 6 of their games coming off the bye. And they've looked unstoppable ever since, especially since getting Chase Young. So, overall, they're both 11-3, but if you're looking at more consistently, it would be the Ravens. However, the 49ers have been beating these teams left and right. They have had statement win after statement win after statement win this season. The Ravens, I really don't know. Outside of Detroit, outside of Seattle, which were both earlier in the season, I really can't name one truly great team that the Ravens have beaten this year. Where San Francisco has beaten the defending NFC champs. They beat the Dallas Cowboys, who look really good right now. And they swept the Seahawks again, which, Seattle's not a great team, but they're certainly not bad either. And they're coming off, just continuing to show why they beat these teams. And that's why they're looking like the best team in the NFL. They're getting the job done, and they're doing it in dominant fashion. So normally I'm a defensive guy here because the Ravens do have the number 2 defense in the NFL. But I got to tell you, I'm going to go with the 49ers here. Even though Lamar Jackson is 19-1 against the NFC in his career, and he also is 26-9 on the road in his career. I think the big thing that takes it away for me here, I like San Francisco's offense more than I like Baltimore's defense. The Ravens' defense is really solid and it is really good, but they do have moments where they are prone to giving up some big plays, as that showed in the Jacksonville game. Even though they held Jacksonville to just 7 points, they did give up some big chunk plays. And the 49ers, I think that's the last offense that they would want to go up against. CMC running it down their throats, Brock Purdy being able to gunsling it. Their tight end, George Kittle is never easy to cover. Their receivers are very innovative and very physical as well. And, of course, that 49er offensive line is always going to be a chore to try and penetrate. So, I think I trust San Francisco's offense more than I trust Baltimore's defense. While the Ravens' offense is really clicking as well, seeing what Todd Monken has done in his first year as OC for the Ravens, San Francisco's defense definitely is going to step up in this one. And I think that they have all the intangibles to be able to beat the Ravens at their own game, which is utilizing CMC, pressuring Lamar Jackson, and I'm a turnover guy when it comes to, overall defense. I think the 49ers' ability to cause turnovers is going to make a key difference in this game as well. Like I said, it's not that the Ravens haven't beaten good teams this year, because they have. It's just the 49ers have done it more this year than the Ravens, despite Baltimore being more consistently. So, there really isn't a wrong answer for this game, but I lean more towards the hotter hand, and right now, that's San Francisco in my opinion. So honestly, yeah, this is definitely looking like a Super Bowl 58 preview, and it's very easy to see why, as this is my spread of the week. 49ers are favored by 5.5, but I do have the Ravens covering this game. I do have them covering the spread. I'm going to go San Francisco to win this one by a final of 35-33. I think this is going to be a phenomenal game. I think there's going to be a lot of offense in this game, and I think it's going to come down to who can make that final stop on defense. Both defenses are capable of doing it, but I like the 49ers' momentum here, and I just think that they have the intangibles to get the job done over Baltimore. So give me the 49ers to win it on Christmas night against the Ravens. That will do it for Week 16. As my tourney members, yins all know what to do down in the comments below. And this is Mac checking on out for the day. And Merry Christmas to all. Happy birthday, Jesus. And to all, a good night.